Well, good morning to you. All right, so today we are working on percent. And I love percentages because I have a really easy way of teaching them and of helping you understand how to do them, no matter what the question looks like. So I want to start there. Okay, so we're going to start with the most simple kind of problem. What is 8% of 22? Okay, it's your standard question, but then we're going to change it. We're going to tweak it so that the variable keeps changing places in the question. So what you do in any percent is you just translate the English to the math. What we're going to call our variable, and for our purposes here, we're going to make it be n. Is always an equal sign. 8% you can translate one of two ways. It can be 8 over 100, and sometimes you will need it to be 8 over 100. Or it can be 0.08. Of is always multiplication, and 22 is always 22. So in this case, I've got my trusty calculator, and we're going to do 0.08 times 22, and we're going to get 1.76. All right, so that's the first way. By the way, if you have trouble turning percents into decimals, here's what you do. If you have 8%, it's 8 point, right? Your decimal, you can say 8.0. You move your decimal over to the left 2 places. 1, 2. There's an empty spot. You put a 0 here, and this is where your decimal goes. Okay? So remember that. All right, our next example is going to be, let's say 22 is what percent of 56? And the same thing we're going to translate. 22 equals n percent. So we're going to do it over 100 because you can't make n into a decimal. Of is multiply, and 56 is 56. I'm going to put it over 1 so we have this nice symmetry here of the two fractions. And when we have two fractions multiplied, we multiply straight across. So we get 56n over 100. And again here, because we have a fraction here, I'm going to put the 22 over 1. Now every time we have a fraction on one side of an equal sign and a fraction on the other side, we cross multiply. 1 times 56n is 56n. 22 times 100 is 2200. And then we divide out the 56, and we get 22 divided by 56 is a weird number, but we don't care. We're going to, for the sake of, I don't know, just because, we're going to round it to the second decimal, so it's going to be 39.29. Let's do our last example. So first here we had our variable here, then we had our variable here. Now we're going to make our variable be in the third spot. We'll say 14 is 8% of what? Okay, see, it doesn't matter when you understand this translation business. It doesn't matter how they word the problem. You just translate it and you'll get it right. 14 equals 0.08 of what? Okay, I'm going to rewrite that so it looks more normal, because you don't need to have that multiplication sign. Okay, and then we just divide out by the 0.08. Now, 14 divided by 0.08 is n equals 175. Okay, so there you have it. There's one other thing I want to talk about that comes in handy. All right, it is called percent change. Now this change, so this is a delta and it represents the word change. It can be an increase or a decrease. So you might see it as what is the percent increase or what is the percent decrease. And I'll give you an example. Let's say our bill, our utility bill in August was $77.83. And our bill in September was $84.21. And the question is, what is the percent increase from August to September? All right, here's the formula. You really should know this. And it's very simple. First, on the numerator, we want the amount of the change. That means we just take the difference, or we subtract one from the other. The denominator is the original number. All right, so when we do this, I'm going to use my calculator. It's not a bad idea for you to practice doing this, just on paper, just in case you get a question like this that is in section 3. Okay, so the original amount, I'm going to bring it down here. So the percent change is, okay, here we go. 6.38 over the original number is our August. That's the number that they first gave us, 77.83. And then when we divide that out, we get 8%. Okay, there it is. So these are your basics. And now I'm going to go a little bit further than basic. All right, so let's clear the decks here. And I want to go to test 1, section 4, number 26. Now, this is what I would consider a difficult question. Most of my students get this wrong. Okay, so here we go. Katerina is a botanist studying the production of pears by 2 types of pear trees. She noticed that type A trees produce 20% more pears than type B trees did. So I'm going to write down A produced 20% more than B. Based on Katerina's observation, if type A trees produce 140 pears, and I stop, and type A is 144 pears, how many pears did the type B trees produce? All right, now you have 2 ways of doing this, and I'm going to show you the what I think is the easiest way first, but there's more work involved. So we're going to simply use the answers, okay? So just write out A and B for now. It asks how many pears did B produce, the B trees, and then they give us numbers. So we can pretend, right, that 115 is the number of pears produced by B. Now it says that A produces 20% more than B. So if we take 20%, right, I'm going to write out a sentence like we did before. What is 20% of the 115? If we take the 20% of 115 and then we add it back to the 115, we should get 144 if A is the answer. Okay, so let's go. What is N equals 0.2 times 115? And this is section 4, so I'm going to use my calculator, and that is 23. N is 23. Now, we're going to add that back, right? Because 23 isn't how many pears B produces, right? We remember this is 20% more than B. So not 20% of B. So we're going to be adding back the 115, and hey, that only adds to 138, not the 144 that A should be. So A is not the answer. Now we're going to go to B, and I'll use a different color here to indicate B. So B, we're going to do the same thing as we just did. We're just going to use 120 instead of 115. So we still have the 20% because that's the given information. A is 20% more than B. So we're going to do 20% of 120, and we get 24 this time, and we're going to add back the 120. And lo and behold, we get 144. That's what we want. B is our answer. Okay, now there is another way of doing this problem that if you try to use, most of my students who try to create an algebraic equation do it incorrectly, and that's why they get it wrong. It's very, very common, very easy to do. But if you get it right, it's very little math work. So we know that A is 20% more than B. So how do you say that? How do you say that A is 20% more than B? Well, you say A is 20% is 0.2. More than B, you kind of feel like maybe you want to add it, but really what you're going to do is you're going to do this. I'm just going to show you what the answer is, and I'm going to explain it. So this 1 represents 100% of A in addition to the 20% of B that we're adding on to the A. All right, and then we know that A is 144. So if we plug in 144 for A and we work the math out, we get, this is like saying 144 divided by 12. And then we just move the decimal. So this is actually 120, which is the answer. You can see there's a lot less work here, but this part is the challenge, right? That is hard to get. All right, so that's that. Now, what other problems could they present to us on the test? Let's create some space here. Okay, so they might say something like, there are, let's say, 90 people surveyed. And of those 90 people surveyed in a town, let's say, they're surveying about which month they want to have the festival in. And so let's say 26% say they want to have the festival in October, and the town has 1,153 residents. Okay, so the question is, out of the total number of residents, how many people are going to want the festival to be in October? What do you think? It's actually pretty simple. This is assuming that this is an appropriate number of people. And I think that if this was a really, a written out word problem, I would have said this is a random sampling, right? So just to make sure my statistics were proper. Okay, so once you know it's a random sample, that means that's good. That means that you can pretty much rely on those results, which means that at 26% of the people surveyed said October, 26% of the total number of residents would feel the same way. So we can just do that. Okay, it's well, let me just write that out. 26% of the 1,153 residents. Okay, and remember, doing the translation, right? I just shortcutted it here. Okay, so do that on the calculator, and it's 299.8. We're just going to say, we're going to round that up to 300 residents because you can't have 0.8 residents. So there we go, 300. Okay, they could give you any number of word problems using percentages, but if you know your basics, chances are good you're going to get most of them right. And if it's a really hard question and you're not shooting for a perfect score or anything in the 700s, you can skip it, meaning pick your guess letter and move on. Okay, I'll see you next time. Bye.